So, because we looked at the exception hierarchy, we looked at the try, catch, throw finally. So now it's time that we write some custom exceptions. And also there is one more thing that I did not specify yesterday, is that there is some class called error. Okay, and errors are also child class of throwable, and it has different type of errors, and these errors, generally we do not handle errors, though we can still catch the error because say, but we do not handle errors generally. It is also a child class of throwable. Sometimes in the interviews people do ask, what is error? An error is a abnormal condition in your program. I mean something like out of memory error. Can we handle out of memory error? We cannot. The program has to exit. So generally we do not handle errors, but in some specific scenarios maybe we may handle the errors. Error is a parallel element for exception. Exceptions are something that we do handle. Most of the cases we handle, and we always handle. Okay, take it for granted. But then in case of error objects, we do not handle. You can see that there are different type of error: internal error, out of memory error, stack overflow error, unknown error. Then class circularity error, class formatter error, no class def found error, unsatisfied link error, verify error. There are so many of them. So errors, these are the standard, defined errors. It is not that you have to use only these errors. Suppose your logic or your program needs, I mean, you have some logic that certain conditions need to be checked in order to have successful run. And if most of them fail, or maybe some of them fail, then your program cannot continue further. So rather you want to exit by throwing an error. You can consider using error class and writing your own custom error. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, it shows some audio disconnection. Fine. So now this is about error object, but then on the exceptions, yes, this is what are the exceptions. And how do we write custom exceptions? So what I can do is, suppose I want to write that, say, let me write a tiny class, or one simple calculator, tiny calculator. Okay, and one more class. So I'm just writing some simple code, very simple code such as now see here I'm throwing exception and it says add throws declaration. Okay, and it is possible that you can throw multiple different exceptions. See here. So the portion that I'm doing now is called Java Doc. Now if I put mouse on this, see here, uh, on this particular thing, now I see that I see, see here, whatever I wrote the message on the top is coming here. So this is called Java Doc. Also you can generate the Java documentation. Let me, though this is not related to exceptions, let me tell you that. Okay, or maybe first let me focus on the exceptions. Okay, so what I did is that I created a tiny calculator, a small calculator application which has just add method, which takes two int values and sees whether both of them or any of them is less than 0, then it will throw an exception called negative numbers not allowed exception. And if the values are greater than 1000, it will throw number is too big exception. Okay, here what I'm trying to explain or convince you is about writing custom exceptions. Writing custom exceptions is like this. So what you do is you write your class public, your exception class name, then extends exception, then if you need it is, then after that it is pretty much your regular Java class. Okay, and in this case, because I want to take the particular exception, the message, and I want to pass on a specific message there. So I have constructor with MSG, and I want to initialize my super class, the base class, that is exception. Okay, and when I extend from exception class, what will happen? Will that be checked or unchecked? There is a question for you. When I extend from exception class, will that be checked exception or unchecked exception?
Say unchecked one.
Checked one? No. When we extend, this is, I told you sometime before as well, that when we extend from exception class, it is checked exception. Our compiler will identify that this exception is possible. Okay, compiler will identify that. That is the reason it forced me to use throws block here. Okay, see, if I say that, shows an error, unhandled exception. If it is a runtime exception or unchecked exception, then this error will not come. We can check that out. Okay, number is too big. Okay, I'll change one exception to runtime exception. Okay, now see here, unhandled exception type, unhandled exception. See here, now this code, now it works fine, but if I try to keep this exception here, it actually throws error. No, it doesn't throw error. Earlier there was some error. Okay, sorry, I was wrong. So it doesn't throw error, but it is not required as well. It is not required as well because it is a runtime exception. Okay, just for demonstrating the exceptions, I am doing this. Okay, so now if I call yes, such as you guys are following me, right? Because I think it should be more interactive because we are just three people together, including me. So if you have any problem, please do let me know. We can change the phase or the contents of how we are doing. So it shows negative number not allowed exception. Okay, and what I can do is, or even you give normal number also, that the because exception is possible, so we need to surround with try catch. Okay, and then calc dot add first case exception will not happen. Now maybe I'll do this. Now here exception is possible, so let me add surround with a try catch again. Okay, and only exception will happen second case. Okay, now let me say and in the third case it will be alerting us about the exception, but still you do a try catch and it is fine. Now let us say this, calc dot add numbers, say 2000 comma maybe 50. What will happen in this case? Which exception will be thrown here?
Number is too big.
Number is too big. Yes. So actually, like, it will be thrown at the runtime because that is a runtime exception. But And the checked exceptions, we have number negative number not allowed exception still will be there. So we need to do catch here. But actually what happens is number is too big exception is will be called. So what happens is this line, no, this line gets printed actually. What I can do is catch. You can actually here one more thing is that you can always do multiple catches. Okay, I'll explain the logic about this particular thing, and if you guys know already, I'll just I'll repeat that again. But first, let me run this program. See here. So exception was possible only how many scenarios? Total in total, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 scenarios I have, and out of which for the first scenario, what is this? I gave, how come it is 50? Okay, sorry, I did not print the value here. Okay. Okay. Of 100 comma 0 is, so the value gets printed in this case. Now let me run this again. Okay, so there are two output lines. There are two out of total 4 use cases that I have. 4 scenarios. One is 100 0, second is minus 25 0, and next is 2030 and 2050. So now if you clearly notice that the first scenario is successful, it says I see the output, and second scenario, if I look at this, it actually sorry, this is the one correct, but yeah, the scenario is that minus 25 comma 0 I am getting exception. Okay, and then your number is too big exception, right? So in case of what I'm trying to explain is that this is how we create custom exceptions. We create and we raise the exceptions as per our business need, and this exceptions is the best way of handling various errors, or application specific errors, your logic specific errors. If there are any system specific errors like memory issues or something like that, or class not found, those things you cannot handle. Rather, this is only the way we are looking at the exceptions is only from an application perspective, application business logic perspective. So now to revisit, so there are two different type of exceptions possible. One is checked exception and other one is unchecked exception. How do we create a checked exception? A question for you, Srikanth. How do we create a checked exception? By extending the class, by extending a class called.
Can't get your question.
No. How do we create a checked exception? How do we create a custom checked exception? I want to have my own custom exception, but how do I create?
We can use that extend.
Extends which class?
Extend exception class, runtime exception class.
No. You're confusing. Actually, see, checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. There are two things. And for checked exceptions, okay, checked exception means what? Compiler will throw you error if you don't handle it, right?
Yeah.
and that exception is possible, you create it by extending exception class, by extending exception class. Okay,
Yeah.
and for what is unchecked exception?
Means the compiler unable to handle that in case we can't see the output at that time. So what we'll do is that we follow that try and catch method.
Yeah, we have to explicitly do it. Okay, so that's actually like it is. That's how they gave in the Java specification. Otherwise, sometimes what happens is that uh, you are, you call some other method, some other API that may throw some exception, and there will be n number of exceptions, and your code may look very clumsy if you have all checked exceptions. Say suppose here, so now not here, but now here, suppose if I throw some 10 different exceptions here, if I say that, throws this exception, comma, that exception, comma. So if I write 10, 20 exceptions, that looks more than your regular code. So some flexibility is that if you think that some certain exceptions happen only at runtime, and when someone does a mistake and it is not specific to application logic, then we tend to have runtime exceptions. And runtime exceptions we create, if we are writing a custom exception, custom runtime exception, then we extend the class called runtime exception. And I just wrote simple, I just wrote very simple constructor, but it is possible that you write complex constructors and they will work. And this is regular Java class. Other than that, this extends runtime exception. You can write some extra parameters, error code, and other things as well. You can do that. But my interest is that you understand checked exception and unchecked exception, and how do you create it in a simplest way. Okay, so how do we create now runtime exceptions, unchecked exceptions, Suji? How do we create unchecked exceptions? Is there?
Yeah.
You are not able to hear. Are you able to get me my voice?
Now I'm able to hear.
Okay. So how do we create a runtime exception or checked exception?
And, um, but
By extending a class called runtime exception. I gave the answer as well in the question. Okay, so now what I understand is that now looks like you guys are not practicing sufficient. So I request you that please, I request you, my sincere request that please spend some time in trying to practice the code. It looks simple, okay? It looks simple at the outset, and um, and it looks like as if you know it, but then when it comes to interviews or in the real work, it will have impact, and it always professional to your working experience. If you work more, then your life will be smoother, programming life will be smoother, and you need to only focus on what you need to do in your job. Whereas otherwise, you try to spend time in figuring out how to do the things in Java. So please do that, okay? Please do that for me. Please practice these things. The simple concepts, but if you skip, they'll become very big concepts. They look very complex, okay? So now here what I did was that um, we created a couple of custom exceptions. Okay, one is a checked exception, this one is checked exception, negative number is not allowed, and then I have uh, the other exception is number is too big exception is a runtime exception or unchecked exception. Compiler will not throw any error, and we saw that particular thing in the tiny calculator. Now see here, it is possible that I'm throwing this exception. Number is too big exception, but then in the throws block I did not specify it because compiler does not care, or it doesn't care to warn you or throw an error on whether a runtime exception is possible or not. Okay, it will only focus on compile time exceptions, that is checked exception or negative, here in this case negative number, numbers not allowed exception. Fine. So that's what I have here, and or maybe if you want, it is possible that you specify the numbers as well, so that your and something is printed on the console, you will have the exception message correctly. Number is more than 1000. And see here, no negative numbers are allowed. Here, -25 and 0. I mean, just that you make the exception in a better way, that give correct information. You can do that kind of logic. Okay. So I think this is what exceptions are all about. But there is one more thing, that very important thing that I would like to explain is that now I'll do that. I'll do that. Mm, yeah. Okay. One sec. I'm just trying to introduce a hierarchy here. So basically, like my exceptions, let it be like that. So, oh, so Java guys did some change recently then. Usually, like, it is possible that you specify, I mean, a child exception first, and then, I mean, sorry, the parent exception. If I specify the parent exception, what happens is that this will get executed always. I mean, and then it will never enter into the custom exception block. Okay, your cache block, this particular cache block, because any exception will come into this particular thing. But now I'll not confuse you. I'll leave as it is in the, because it is not letting me do it. But that's an interesting finding. I'll remove this. I'll stop it here. So this is primarily about, I will try to do some exception hierarchy. I said my custom exception and your negative number actually extends from custom exception. So I request you to please follow this, try this out, okay? Unless you try your code, you will not get any doubts. You will not get any doubts. It looks like, if I'm hungry, only I will understand the taste of the food when I eat. If someone eat the food, I'll not be able to understand the taste of the food. So I request you to practice.